President Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, the former New York City mayor. He's telling NBC News that he has spoken with Mueller and his partisan team of witch hunters in the past 24 hours. He's now saying that a potential presidential interview is being put in a holding pattern, which is great news. Mueller has no business ever questioning the president of the United States. There's no such thing as collusion, although there might be with Mueller and that oligarch guy. I'll explain. Now, remember the leaked special counsel question, asking Trump what he thought, how he felt, how did you feel? Well, those are ridiculous questions. Mueller's clearly setting, in that case, a perjury trap. No good lawyer would let the president be interviewed under those conditions. And also tonight, the president, he's continuing to keep his promises to you, the American people, the forgotten men and women that the media never thought would show up in November of 2016. And he's now calling on Congress to do their job. Secure the border. Do it now. Take a look.
The first duty of government is to protect our citizens, and the men and women of DHS are on the front lines of this incredible, heroic fight. That is why we are calling on Congress to secure our borders, support our border agents, stop sanctuary cities, and shut down policies that release violent criminals back into our communities. We don't want it any longer.
No, we don't. We need to protect the American people. Now, President Trump, he has already accumulated an amazing record of accomplishments for every Republican, if they're smart, that they can run on in November. And this would just be another key victory. Look at the economy, record low levels of unemployment, optimism at 11-year high. The president's poll numbers, the highest he's had in his presidency. And there's their promises that are kept on the Iranian deal, on the embassy in Jerusalem, on tax cuts, on killing the Obamacare individual mandate. And there are positive results all over the place. And by the way, it hasn't even been 2 years. Also tonight, this is major. The Russia collusion hoax is unraveling, as we predicted, right before our eyes. The House Intelligence Committee Chairman, Devin Nunes, he is offering up new proof that the entire thing has always been a witch hunt. Chairman Nunes is now saying that there was never any credible evidence for the FBI to begin probing the Trump campaign. Now we know there was a spy, supposedly, on top of the FISA abuse. He never had any right to do this in the first place. Take a look.
We have yet to see any credible evidence or intelligence that led to the opening of this investigation. I believe they never should have opened a counterintelligence investigation into a political party. Counterintelligence investigations are very rarely do they happen, and when they do happen, you have to be very careful because you're using the tools of our intelligence services and relationships with other countries in order to spy on a political campaign. Probably not a good idea.
The powerful tools of intelligence used to spy on an opposition party candidate, and those powerful tools used against Americans, no, that can't happen here. So there was never any actual credible evidence to launch this investigation. And, of course, Rod Rosenstein conflicted. This is a stunning statement by Devin Nunes. And that's on top of course, the FBI, the DOJ, lying, misleading FISA judges multiple times in order to get a FISA warrant to spy on a Trump campaign associate in the weeks leading up to an election. And for an entire year, 4 judges lied to. They never were told the truth. They never told it was a bought and paid for Clinton dossier that was not verified, not corroborated. And now there's a new dynamic to this massive scandal. Now the possibility of an FBI mole that was inside the Trump campaign. Now Chairman Nunes is now investigating this huge development. Take a look.
You had Fusion GPS that was hired by the Democratic Party in the Clinton campaign to draw up a dossier on the president, or as the president was running for president. What happened with that is that in his testimony, he mentioned that there was a source within the campaign.
Glenn Simpson, who runs Fusion GPS.
Glenn Simpson said that in public, what was closed testimony, then it became public. Now he's confirmed that he was telling Congress the truth, which is probably a good idea. We believe he was telling the truth. And what we're trying to do is get the documents to figure out, did they actually have, what methods were used to open this counterintelligence investigation.
That is an amazing statement. We have been saying that this scandal is the biggest abuse of power scandal and corruption scandal in American history, and that we have been uncovering this and peeling back the onion. This is only the beginning. You got to sit tight and buckle up, because everything that the media, the Democrats, have been telling you for well over a year is now getting flipped on its head, and all of it, as we told you at the beginning of this year, is boomeranging back on them. Now, while the real Russia scandal is expanding, well, Robert Mueller's witch hunt is crumbling. Now, it's reaching embarrassing levels. Let's run through some of the recent headlines. At Mueller's probe's first trial, expect more blunt lectures from the bench. Now, that judge, T.S. Ellis III, already smacked down in epic fashion Mueller's team, calling them out for trying to flip Paul Manafort on an effort unrelated. It had to do with the Ukraine and tax fraud from 2005. What does that have to do with Trump-Russia collusion? The Washington Times indicted firm Mueller trying to justify his own existence and indict a Russian, any Russian. These court transcripts reportedly show Robert Mueller indicted a Russian company. It didn't exist at the time, they said. Now, this is now showing that Mueller's original indictment was nothing more than an illusion to make it seem like there was some sort of Russia collusion. Mueller never anticipated that the Russians were going to call his bluff. This is a huge embarrassment for him. And now there are the special counsel. They look foolish because his team was never prepared, as Andy McCarthy said. It was all for show. Byron York out with this piece. 1 year down, and it's still Mueller time. And he writes that Russia probe has now been going on for almost 3 years, and there is not one indication what this entire investigation is really about. Now, here's what we do know. After all of this time, there is zero evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. It's been a witch hunt, it is a witch hunt, and it is a total sham. And for the sake of the country, it needs to end. And then we have key updates to John Solomon's explosive report that we brought you last night about the FBI Director Mueller actually working with the Russian billionaire Oleg Deripaska is his name, now part of the investigation. He was working with him. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong. I'm going to defend Robert Mueller on this. He and other FBI agents, they were trying to free a former FBI retiree, a CIA operative. His name is Robert Levinson from Iran. He was being held hostage. Now, I'm happy that he was working with the Russian billionaire, the oligarch, that he somehow convinced the oligarch to give him $25 million to help save an American being held hostage. I have no problem with that at all. The government should do everything possible in that situation. I'll give Mueller credit. It was the right thing to do. Here's the issue. It's just a massive conflict of interest, and that's what we're calling Mueller's Russian collusion here. You know what? If you're going to talk about a guy in a Manafort case that you worked with, that you secured $25 million from, I think you need to reveal something like that. Now, John Solomon reporting tonight that Russian oligarch is one of the first people the FBI actually interviewed when they began investigating the Clinton bought and paid for dossier. And as Solomon and others are now exposing, the Russian actually told the FBI the idea of Russian collusion was false. So now the question is, did the FBI tell the FISA courts that a former trusted source of theirs told them that there was nothing to this Russia collusion when they were applying for those 4 FISA warrants? The original application and 3 subsequent applications, all using the bulk of information from the Clinton bought and paid for unverified dossier with Russian lies. They lied about it to the FISA court to spy on an American citizen, an opposition party campaign member. Now, another developing story to tell you about tonight. The meeting between the DOJ and the House Committee Chairman Devin Nunes and Trey Gowdy that was reportedly scheduled for next week, well, that's not happening. Why? Nunes and Gowdy were again supposed to see the 1.2 million classified documents and information that they have been requesting about the Russia investigation. At this hour, it's unclear why this meeting is no longer happening, but what is clear is that Rod Rosenstein, the Department of Justice, they have been stonewalling Congress every single step of the way. And the DOJ is also trying to sabotage the work that people like Nunes, Goodlatte, Gowdy are doing with anonymous leaks. They want to slow roll this until the midterms, hoping Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats take over the House, so then they won't reveal any of this. Now, also tonight, Fox News is learning that Congress has received information from the DOJ that it requested regarding Comey's buddy. Remember that that professor over at Columbia University, now his attorney, Daniel Richman. Remember, he was a special government, he had special government employee status. Former Obama deep state DOJ official Sally Yates, interestingly, she's going after the president, claiming that he's, quote, tearing down the legitimacy of the DOJ. Sally, you're probably watching. But you and the rest of your deep state cronies, you have already done enough damage. And the sad part is that rank and file, FBI, CIA, intelligence, their reputations are smeared because of deep state operatives at the upper echelon and the misdeeds that they did in all of this that we have now proven on this show. And maybe, Sally, you're forgetting you were emailing with Mueller's pit bull, Andrew Weissman. And Yates is also one of the corrupt officials that signed off on at least one of the FISA warrants that was unverified, uncorroborated. So congratulations, Sally. You've done enough damage to the DOJ, more than any president ever could.
At the beginning of the Robert Mueller Russia investigation, and at the end of that period, we have discovered there is still no evidence at all of collusion between the Donald Trump for President campaign of 2016 and the Russian government. But Mueller's many supporters in Washington don't seem to care about that. That's because the investigation was never about Russia, obviously. The whole absurd fever dream was always a way for the ruling class to feel better about losing power in 2016. It was a way for them to avoid thinking about why Trump got elected, and they never have thought about it. Along the way, the investigation has provided Democrats with a full year of government-funded Oppo research and destroyed the lives of a number of people who supported Donald Trump. Those are added bonuses from the Democratic perspective. But there have been downsides for Democrats. Voters are not impressed by the Russia story. It is weird and false and confusing. It has precisely nothing to do with voters' actual lives or the issues they vote on. It's a total waste of time for everyone, and yet it's all Democrats have. Trump is evil, so is Russia. That's the entire progressive program of 2018 summarized in 2 sentences. If the Democratic Party had a Sermon on the Mount, those would be the Beatitudes. No wonder their approval numbers are falling. Republican Congressman Todd Rokita of Indiana has introduced a resolution calling for an end to Mueller's investigation or a report within 30 days. He joins us along with fellow Republican Ron DeSantis of Florida. He says he may know the identity of the person who spied on Trump's campaign for the FBI in 2016. Gentlemen, welcome to you both tonight. Congressman Rokita, first to you. So this resolution would call for an end to the investigation or a report summarizing its findings so far. Am I misstating that?
No, both's correct, Tucker. The fact of the matter is, it's been a year, as you say. It's been $20 million, and we need to see a report of what evidence he has. And absent that evidence, it should wind up within 30 days of the resolution passing.
So why wouldn't other members on both sides in the Congress want some oversight? I mean, you're constitutionally bound to provide oversight of the DOJ, so why are you the only person calling for this?
Well, I'm not. Matt Gaetz is also calling for it. There's a couple others calling for it, but we need your viewers to call your members of Congress and get them on board. You can only have a free republic, as you know, Tucker, if you have transparency, and this is exactly what we need. It is a witch hunt. It's gone beyond an investigation, and the only evidence of collusion that we found and the only evidence of criminality has been on the Democrats. So we're calling on Mueller to show his hand or fold the deck.
Even if I believe the president colluded with Vladimir Putin, I'd be very concerned about this investigation because the parameters aren't clear, the timeline is opaque, and it's not clear what the point is. So, Congressman DeSantis, one of the enduring mysteries of the past 2 weeks has been the story of a mole or spy within the Trump campaign feeding information to the Russia investigation. Have you any sense who that person might be?
Look, I do, Tucker, but I think that the issue needs to go through the proper channels. I'm not comfortable disclosing who I think it is based on the evidence that I have, but I could say this. The American people deserve an answer, up or down. Did the FBI direct somebody to spy on Donald Trump's campaign? Was somebody actively working to undermine his campaign and create the illusion of collusion? And if that's the case, I think that's more serious than the FISA abuse. I think it's more serious than Rosenstein butchering this whole appointing order with Mueller from the beginning. So we need the answer to those questions.
Shocking.
And they are not giving us the answers right now, Tucker.
They're definitely not. Now, I know you don't want to risk libel by naming someone because this has not been proved in court. So, but give us a sense of what you're talking about. Are you saying that someone who worked on the Trump campaign fed information to law enforcement?
So if you look at Glenn Simpson's testimony from Fusion GPS,
yes,
he talked about there being a human source. And that was something that was controversial at the time. Some people said it was Papadopoulos. It's not Papadopoulos. That's not what he was referring to. So the issue is he acknowledges there's a human source. Peter Strzok, he opens up the counterintelligence investigation in the summer of 2016. What does he do the next day? He goes to Great Britain, he goes to London, and he's meeting with people. Well, how the heck would you do that if you just opened the investigation that day? So I think in that kind of the London, Christopher Steele, Glenn Simpson axis is probably the individual that we're looking at. But I mean, look, we need to know whether this individual was spying or not. I have grave concerns about it, but I think we can get those questions answered when the Justice Department ponies up the documents.
You're absolutely right. But last follow-up on that is, are you suggesting or do you believe that this is someone who was pressured into cooperating with the investigation or someone who freely sent information over about the campaign?
Oh, I think it's the latter, Tucker. I think that this would be somebody potentially could have been paid by the FBI, you know, like Steele was there was an agreement to pay Steele.
Right.
So we just need to answer that. Did they pay anybody? Yes or no?
Well,
did they direct anyone to go to the campaign? Yes or no? Very easy questions to answer.
And Tucker, we need to, I mean,
this
Ron
is the
DeSantis
Obama well, you're exactly. I'm sorry, Congressman. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Ron DeSantis is exactly right. We also need to know the relationship between Mueller and Comey. I mean, Comey kicked this whole thing off with a bogus FISA warrant. And what is the relationship between Mueller and Comey? Did Mueller give Comey immunity? Does Comey think he's above the law? Where are we going with all this? That's what needs to be investigated.
Do you believe, quickly, Congressman, do you believe that Jim Comey has been offered immunity by the Mueller investigation?
Well, I think it stands to reason, and I think the American people deserve to know.
That would be shocking. Congressman, thank you both. I appreciate that. I hope you get to the bottom of those. We have a right to know.
Thanks.